One of the Western Cape's strategic rail corridors is under attack. A group of armed men has been using violence and intimidation tactics against contractors and Prasa employees. The Central Line is a major route housing a dozen of the region's busiest stations. It's also a volatile line susceptible to crime. All infrastructure projects on the corridor are now halted. Let's get more from Prasa spokesperson Andiswa Makanda. Thank you very much, Andiswa, for speaking to us. This is certainly not an ideal situation, but it's also not a new situation. Intimidation, violence, attacks, they have been ongoing on various elements of South Africa's rail infrastructure, not only passenger rail, but also Transnet's freight rail lines. So let's talk about extortion. We know that the Western Cape Organised Crime Unit has mentioned extortion, but Prasa hasn't explicitly said whether extortion was involved. Can you comment?
Good evening, Andy. Good evening to viewers. I think for now we want to give space to law enforcement and the SAPS to conduct their own investigation. We don't want to rule. We don't want to make any confirmations or speculations whether the extortion was involved. From our side, we haven't received any demands for any certain amount of work or any money. So for now, we don't want to talk about extortion, but we'll allow for SAPS and law enforcement to do their investigations.
Okay, so let's talk about the impact. As we said there in that introduction, the Central Line is an absolutely essential corridor. It's a busy corridor. What is the impact not only on Prasa's operations, but also on commuters?
I think for the past couple of 2 years, we haven't been able to run services on the Central Line. This has had a huge devastation on commuters living around that area who rely on affordable and efficient transport services, especially train services that are affordable. So it means that it will delay the recovery of the entire Central Line, although we have recovered a section of Central Line between Cape Town and Langa via Serapta and Pinelands. But now we were working on phase 2, where we wanted to recover the entire Central Line going up to Prisani sections, Kailicha and all of that. But now because of the violence and the intimidation that's happening on that Central Line, it will delay the recovery work on that line.
So let's talk about the broader crime problem, because opportunistic crime, theft of infrastructure, that's one thing. And we know that you haven't committed to commenting on whether extortion is involved or not. But if there is a more organised approach to the kind of violence and crime that is taking place on Prasa's rails, that is going to make the strategy in dealing with that situation a little bit more complex. So where are you in terms of progress towards making a long-term security solution?
I think a multidisciplinary approach is what we need. We are working with various stakeholders, including law enforcement and SAPS, so that we can devise a joint security plan where we are not working unilaterally or in isolation or in silos, but we are working with the SAPS and security to ensure that we safeguard our essential economic infrastructure. So it's important that it can't be Prasa's battle alone, but it's a broader a situation that will involve a lot of stakeholders, including the police, which is what we are currently doing. We are devising an integrated security plan that will involve law enforcement as well.
So Prasa is also upgrading infrastructure, but this kind of a delay is going to have a financial impact as well. Also, despite an integrated approach, security comes at a cost. What are the long-term financial implications of crime on Prasa's budget at the end of the day and your ability to stay afloat?
I think, Annalie, we don't want to be in a situation where Prasa is not just an organization that runs trains. We don't want to become a security company, but because of the extent of theft and vandalism, the constant attacks on the rail infrastructure, we find ourselves moving towards a security company. That's what we want to avoid. But the theft and vandalism is costing Prasa. I mean, we're talking about billions of rands of infrastructure that has been vandalized and stolen that needs to be replaced and recovered. However, I must say that we are in constant chats, conversations with national government to assist us in fighting and turning the tide against crime of essential infrastructure. Even on the central line, we're looking at millions of rands per year that it will cost us to safeguard the infrastructure. Broadly, we're talking about the figure there that was mentioned by our acting head of protection services, that we may need R1 billion a year to safeguard the infrastructure. But that's not the situation that we want to find ourselves in annually as Prasa.
Well, thank you very much for your time. That was Prasa spokesperson Andiswa Makanda talking to us as violence has once again targeted the central line near Bonteheuwel in the Western Cape.